Alright, I just finished watching Rob Zombie's The Munsters, the hotly anticipated, or maybe not so much anticipated Rob Zombie Munster movie. You know, when they announced it, everyone made fun of it. I saw all sorts of fake trailers online where people are swearing up a storm and all this stuff, and everyone thought, oh my gosh, they're gonna go around killing people and all that stuff. It's not gonna be the Munsters. Rob Zombie has always said he's a big fan of the Munsters. I don't doubt it. I mean, he would have been the correct age to watch it back in the 60s and really be taken aback by all the different stylized horror of it, horror aesthetics at least. And we've never really seen much of a PG-13 Rob Zombie before, so I think people are very curious. I was very curious, and of course that trailer came out and it was infamous because it made it look very cheap. It made it look badly edited, unfinished. A lot of the audio was terrible, and it just made it look cringy. And I was intrigued because it looked very colorful and cool, but the presentation of it was a little off. So when I saw the Blu-ray, I snapped it up and took it home and watched it. Let's get a few things out of the way first. So I am a fan of the Munsters. I wouldn't say I'm a big super fan, but I grew up with it. I'm a child of the 80s. I'm not a child of the 60s. So I watched Addams Family and the Munsters in syndication, along with all the other terrific 60s, 70s fantasy-oriented sitcoms like I Dream of Jeannie and Bewitched and all that stuff. My favorite Martian. And I always look. I love Addams Family. I always thought the Munsters was more fun, and I've always been more of a Munsters booster than Addams Family. When the Addams Family became a movie franchise, I was kind of baffled as a kid because I thought that Munsters was a shoo-in to be folded into Hollywood and made into a movie franchise, but that didn't really happen. Munsters, of course, beat Addams Family to movies first with Munsters Go Home, and they made some TV movies after that, like Munsters Revenge, and Here Come the Munsters with Papa Gilmore, Edward Herman is that his name, playing Herman Munster. And I think Munsters Revenge was still Fred Gwynne. That was in the early 80s, I think. So I was disappointed that like the Munsters weren't getting that shine. Those movies in the 90s really boosted the Addams Family franchise. They had a new cartoon and new pop culture awareness, whereas the Munsters sort of languished. Don't know why it took them so long to make something, and I was disappointed that this movie was going to be an origin, like a prequel. I just wanted the Munster family to live with strife and everything and bigotry and stuff, like they always did back in the day. That you could tell some really good tales now, with the Munsters that way. But it wasn't to be. It's an origin story. I want to get something else out of the way. All of you who doubt that Rob Zombie is a fan of the Munsters, he's a fan because he wrote and directed this, and he put in a whole bunch of obscure references that people who don't really know the Munsters wouldn't know. I mean, Gilbert's in this, and he's just thrown in there, and they meet him, and they watch Creature from Black Lagoon and all that, and Gilbert looks like the Gilbert costume from the original show. It's got the weird squinty eyes. I always thought that was weird that the eyes looked squinted more in the Munsters, probably to distinguish it. But he's supposed to be the movie star from the three Creature movies and everything. Lester's in it. Lester plays a big role in this. Lester, for those who don't know, is the baby brother of Lily. But he's a wolf man, and he's kind of a shyster. He's always got some sort of deal going and all that, and he's always asking for money and stuff like that. That's totally him here. He's played by Tomas Boykin with a lot of aplomb. So yeah, Rob Zombie is totally a fan of the Munsters, and everyone who acted in this movie seemed to really want to bring Rob Zombie's vision to life here. Jeff Daniel Phillips does a great job channeling Fred Gwynne as Herman Munster, and more so than any other actor I've seen in that role, because there've been a lot, like there was Munsters Today and all sorts of different revivals. If you're a fan of the Munsters, you've lived through a lot of different revivals, and they don't hold a candle to the original cast, but they're still fun. The visuals of the Munsters are still there, and the ideals of the Munsters are still there. Some criticisms of the movie, I would say, there, there's a narrative thrust to this film where there's one of Grandpa Munster's ex-wives, and they don't call him Dracula here, but he's supposed to be Dracula, just older. One of his ex-wives is out to get him, uses Lester to try and get his castle and everything. And at one point she succeeds, and that's why spoilers, but this is an origin story, so that's why they moved to LA to Mockingbird Lane, right? But the problem with that is when they go to LA, that's towards the end of the film sort of drops and sort of halts right in its spot, because all of a sudden the tension is gone. They just up and move and go to the familiar house where we know. But the problem with that is the story is gone, and I really felt it. As soon as they go to LA, I was like, I guess this movie's over now. I mean, it's pointless to carry on. What else are they wrapping up here? Lester does come at the end and cap things off a little bit just before the end, but For most of the film, I was wrapped up in the shenanigans of Grandpa's ex and her machinations to get back at Grandpa, and she succeeds. And then the movie's like, okay, well, they go to L.A., they go into the house, and that's it. It's like perhaps if they came up with some sort of narrative tie-in, that the Mockingbird Lane house was there all along or something, and maybe work that into the story earlier and make it feel more satisfying, that would have been neat. But it is what it is. I think a lot of people will be turned off by the retro aesthetics of this movie. I think they're done on purpose. I have not watched all of the featurette making of yet, and I have not listened to the commentary track, which is on the Blu-ray as well, from Rob Zombie. I'd love to hear it, because he probably explains all this. But there's a whole world that's created here of Transylvania with all these horror characters that exist with each other. And that's awesome. It would have been better if it were done as a big budget movie, because a lot of the creatures in this, I love the idea of it all, but they all look like costumes from a theme park. And I think that's done on purpose. I think they're made to look like what they would have looked like in the original series. Well, Gilbert, for example, in the original series, Gilbert is the creature from Black Lagoon. He was in the original series. What he was in the original series, he was a big plastic costume that was inarticulate and didn't have a lot of detail. And that's most of the creatures in this movie. They go to a restaurant at one point, and it's run by mummies and pharaoh mummies and stuff, and they look awesome. They're colorful, but when they talk, their lips barely move, and the makeup is mostly just masks, and the masks are not very detailed. It's still fun, and I understand what he's going for, but a modern audience isn't going to understand it. When they're all watching TV, of course, it's all black and white TVs from the 60s and stuff. And a lot of the humor, in the beginning, a lot of the humor hinged on, look, there's this creature, look how scary, and then it talks normally and is all nice and stuff. And that gag is done 2 or 3 times until it's worn out. There are some gags I thought were funny. At one point, Lily is trying to date a Nosferatu type of guy, and the Nosferatu guy, obviously he sleeps around, so he's trying to lure her back to his pad, and his pad is a tomb with a creepy looking tomb, but with neon lights that say if the tombs are rocking, don't come a knocking, and he starts doing this like a club dance to woo her, and she's like, ah, no. I thought that was funny. So the story basically is Lily's trying to search for a guy. A dude named Dr. Wolfgang is trying to make the perfect man so he could, like, you know, cash in and stuff. Gets brains mixed up, of course, and mixes up a dead genius with a dead kind of Shecky Green, terrible comedian, and creates Herman Munster. He abandons that experiment. Herman Munster then branches out and tries to, you know, be his own guy, and he's doing like beat poetry and rock and roll and stuff in bars. She meets Herman Munster. She sees him on TV when he's first revealed, and they fall in love. Lester, the rotten, you know, like brother of Lily, gets him involved in a scheme to try and get Lester out of Hawk with a sort of like a fortune teller, like gypsy woman, sort of like a character you'd see in the Wolfman movies. And in so doing, swindles Herman Munster out of Grandpa's fortune, and that screws up everything. And then they have to move to LA. I've sort of like given away the entire story, but like there's a lot of other stuff going on in this film. And I do love the way that Sherry Moon Zombie played Lily, and Jeff Daniel Phillips. Actually, Daniel Roebuck is great too. They're all great as these characters. They really tried to capture the essence of these characters from the original show. I talked about Jeff Daniel Phillips. He's great as a Fred Gwynn, you know, Herman Munster. He does his own thing. I think that Sherry Moon Zombie and Jeff Daniel Phillips succeed in making like younger, sweet versions of these characters. Daniel Roebuck, of course, doesn't like Herman Munster. They have a bad first impression, which I thought was pretty funny too. There are some funny moments in this. Maybe you won't laugh, but I laughed at some moments here. Richard Boykin as Dr. Wolfgang was pretty funny. Very overly serious dude that's trying to make the perfect creature and fails miserably and is so like annoyed by Herman Munster. So all of this said, you know, I've criticized the film. I've talked about the performances. I've talked about the script that sort of falls limp towards the end. And let me just say too, the aesthetics. If you didn't like the trailer, you probably won't like the movie. Or you might watch the movie and it'll wear down on you, and you'll end up liking it halfway through, because this film does look like the cheapness that you saw in that trailer. They've fixed up a lot of the audio, but I don't know. There's something about the way Rob Zombie shoots films that looks too on the nose and a little flat. That said, I love the colorful aesthetics of this film. This looks like a visual Halloween treat. This is a great Halloween movie, by the way. But you know, there's a lot of this sort of creep show type of stuff where in the background there'll be, you know, two colors swirling around as someone like reacts to something, you know, that kind of thing. There's a lot of visual flair to the world of Transylvania that could have been better if it had a bigger budget and was made for a big screen. But yeah, it's, I mean, and let's get into like the heart of it. So I've criticized it. That's my critique. All of that said, I love this movie. I thought it was awesome. I thought it was a lot of fun. It's entertaining. The characters really shine in this. I think the actors do a good job selling the characters. You know, and I mean, you know, Herman Munster's great. I want to see more with him. We probably won't get that. You know, like Herman Munster as played by Jeff Daniel Phillips. I like Sherry Moon Zombie as Lily. I love Daniel Roebuck as Grandpa. But I mean, I thought that this was a great film to watch for Halloween. It's got a lot of colorful visual flair that I will no doubt revisit. I love the attitude and fun attitude of it. There's no violence or anything. This isn't your typical Rob Zombie thing. I think the two most violent scenes are they meet a mime that's so deathly afraid of them that he pantomimes ripping out his own heart, but it's a pantomime, so there's no no actual heart going on. It's like it's beating in his hand, and then he dies, like he pantomimes dying. I thought that was funny. And one woman, like an airplane stewardess, is so afraid of them that she like jumps out of the plane with a parachute. That I thought that was weird. They didn't really sell that gag probably, but there's nothing really terrible happening here. You can show this to a kid and they can be introduced to a lot of these concepts, like the Frankenstein monster and stuff like that. I feel like this is a movie I'm going to pop in often. It's harmless, fun, colorful stuff. The sweetness of the characters really shines through, and that is the heart of the Munsters. All of the technical stuff aside, like the script that falls flat at the end, and the fact that this is a prequel and you don't get to see the full family in this film. All of that said, like I think the heart and sweetness of the original concept, this idea of like monsters existing in the world as just average people who have their own wants and desires and fears, etc., is wonderful. It really comes through in this film. I know that a lot of people online that are piling on this movie. I feel like a lot of the time, I'll just get on my high horse and say that I feel like a lot of time people like they get overly upset and overly outraged at things. I don't know if it's for hits or to show that they're part of a group or what, but like, it's okay to have fun. It's okay for a movie to just be fun. This isn't so technically awful that it's like like I've seen bad movies. Like, I've seen like really awful films in my day. If you think this is like one of the worst movies you've ever seen, and you need to see more movies, it's colorful, it's fun. I get the goofy, good-natured attitude of it that Rob Zombie is really trying to show here. And honest to God, I feel like, like this isn't like his other films where it's all like mean-spirited and angry and violent and all that stuff. But I feel like more so than any of his other films, this is probably Rob Zombie's brain unspooled onto camera. Just the fun retro aesthetics. This is the kind of thing that I always get in his interviews and never in his films. I always hear him talk a big talk about his love for retro stuff and all these wonderful old movies and TV shows he watched. And I'm like, that's wonderful. Why am I not seeing that in the films? And here I totally see that. I totally see him returning to the things that made him the horror geek he is today, right here in this film. So listen, if you just want a fun, retro, colorful, monster and horror aesthetic thing that everyone can enjoy, you, your kids, whatever, and something that really hits the spot for Halloween, you can't go wrong with the Rob Zombie The Munsters movie. It's great, man. It's like, listen, all of the things wrong with the film will quickly flit away because you'll just have fun with it. If you like stuff like Beetlejuice and other colorful, fun horror things, you'll definitely love The Munsters. I think it's wonderful. So hopefully you get that same enjoyment too. Take care.